Sid, the big takeaway from watching any Real Madrid game at the moment is how dreadful they are and how there's no real signs of them improving.
No, I think that's quite right. Sometimes, we analyse things, we look into all the various debates and the doubts and the should this player play and should the other player play. And every now and again, we're just drawn back to something so simple. And I think you've said it. Real Madrid are not very good. I mean, it really is. You watch them play and you think that they're just not a very good team. I mean, even when the results have been okay. So, for example, it's true that this game is conditioned by the fact that they won the first leg 3-0, so they go through, they get beaten by Leganés, and it feels like it doesn't matter, and at the same time, it doesn't really ever feel like they're going to get knocked out, and so maybe we shouldn't worry about this game. But this is another game like this. So, for example, in this recent run with Santiago Solari, they've only beaten one team in the top half of the table. That was a 2-1 victory at Betis, and goodness only knows how they ended up winning this. They have a 1-0 win over Rayo Vallecano, second bottom, played dreadfully. They beat Huesca and were very fortunate to do so. They were beaten 2-0 by Real Sociedad, and while there was a huge amount of focus, and quite rightly actually, on one of the refereeing decisions that went against them, the performance was dreadful. Madrid just at the moment don't look very good at all. They don't look like they have a clear idea. They don't look like the players are happy. They don't look like they're playing well. And as you say, 10 points behind Barcelona in La Liga. But of course, we all know that Real Madrid's season always gets defined by the Champions League. And somehow in the Champions League, this is a club that manages to kind of hide from their own poor form and somehow pull it out.
But this time, they can't, can they? Sure they're not. If they win the Champions League this year.
I mean, this is a team that did it last year with Ronaldo.
Yeah.
It's a team that only did it because of Ronaldo. It's a team that's worse than they were last year, and they don't have Ronaldo. There's absolutely nothing to suggest that this team can go anywhere close to the final.
Who's getting the blame, Sid, for all of this mess?
Well, look, I mean, it's quite difficult to give you a proper answer to that because in a way, let's go back to what we were saying a minute ago. Because they're so bad in so many ways, it's quite difficult to then kind of point at one individual thing. So, of course, we've got the debate around Isco at the moment, whether or not he should play more. You've got the debate about the physical fitness, in particular, of those players who had a long World Cup. So Modric hasn't really found his form this year. Of course, you've got Cristiano Ronaldo as a key element in all of this and his departure. You've got question marks about the debilitation of the squad, which I think has been happening every summer for about 3 years or so now. And for the first time, you do look at the squad and think, OK, there are significant weaknesses there. And so all the way through the squad, there are lots of people getting the blame. Of course, Solari, as the current manager, does have some fingers pointing at him. But I don't think anyone is saying this has happened because of Solari. Maybe they're saying Solari hasn't yet found the solution. But I don't think anyone's actually blaming him outright for this.
What happens next, Sid? We know Florentino Perez is quite trigger-happy, isn't he, with regards to his managers. But from what you're suggesting is that it's not actually going to make much of a difference. So is this season going to be pretty much a write-off if they, obviously, when they get knocked out in the Champions League, and then start again in the summer with a new coach?
Well, up to a point, yes. I mean, bear in mind that they were beaten by Leganés yesterday. That's the 10th time they've been beaten in 30 games this season. A third of their matches they've lost. That's already more defeats this season than in the whole of last season. We've still got quite a long way to go. So does the season get written off? Well, no, not necessarily, because although it's 10 points behind Barcelona, the league title's not over yet. The Copa del Rey is not over yet. And, of course, the Champions League is not over yet. But you're right to suggest that if and when they reach a point at which they say, OK, look, basically this season is done, there isn't really a lot of need to change the manager at that point. There's really not a lot of point in letting a manager burn his fingers on a team between now and the end of the season. So I think we would see a change in the summer. Although I think one of the things that is worth pointing out here is that Real Madrid are actually quite clear-minded about what it is that they want to do structurally. And so if we talk about, well, in the summer you start again, but you can only start again up to a point because this policy, for example, of buying in the best young players from other Spanish clubs will continue. That's an economic imperative as well as a footballing one. Yes, there will be signings in the summer, and yes, there may be some significant ones, and Eden Hazard, of course, is at the top of that list. But this isn't about Real Madrid saying, right, here's all the money in the world, let's go and buy absolutely everyone, because the economic reality of European football has shifted for Real Madrid. And so some of what they've done, which can appear to be debilitating the squad, is actually partly a necessity. And Florentino Perez was very, very close to saying this publicly at the presentation of Brahim the other day. He said, this is a new environment now. And this isn't one in which Real Madrid can be guaranteed that they can outbid everybody for the very best players around.
Let's talk about the possible manager who could come in the summer. The bookies have got Jose Mourinho as favourites, Sid, coming in. 7-4.
Wow.
Then Pochettino at 11-4. Obviously, he's been heavily linked to the United job as well. And then further afield, Allegri, Jogi Low and Antonio Conte.
Yeah, I mean, look, when Real Madrid brought in Julian Lopetegui in the summer, one of the reasons why that didn't go particularly well was because Lopetegui wasn't first choice. When they brought in Santi Solari not so long ago, it was partly because there weren't a huge amount of other options out there. In the summer, the situation will have changed in part. Why? Well, one very simple reason. It's not immediately after a 3-times Champions League winning team with one manager. In other words, in the summer, Allegri, for example, who's on that list, was one of those people who thought, no thanks, I'm not going to go in now. I literally cannot win even if I win.
Yeah.
And so I think that will shift in the summer. Mourinho is a curious one, and Mourinho is a curious one in so much as here is someone that part of the board and the president, there's a bit of them that thinks, let's get him back. This is the guy, there's a bit of them that kind of clings to this idea of Mourinho. There's a bit of them that clings to this idea that this is the guy that will get them into shape. This was the guy that will make them compete. This is the guy that will sort out the dressing room. This is the guy that will be tough, that has the personality to do this. And yet at the same time, recognise that it's problematic to do this. Recognise that this could go horribly wrong. Recognise that there's a bit of them that thinks, yeah, this is a great idea, but there's also a bit of them that thinks, actually, you know what? This is a terrible idea. So I think that there are difficulties with all of these options. Pochettino, for example, someone they tried to get in the summer, but they encountered a Spurs, well, Daniel Levy in particular, but Spurs at club level, institutional level, just saying that this isn't going to happen. We're not going to let this happen. And there wasn't a buyout clause to make it happen, and nor was Pochettino prepared to go to war to make it happen, prepared to try and force his way out. So I actually think Real Madrid are in a position which right now, Real Madrid themselves don't know. They will think very carefully about these, and yeah, Mourinho and Pochettino are options, but they're not the only ones, and yet it might not necessarily be a case of them getting their first choice, as it hasn't been for the last couple of appointments.